Hello students, in today's lecture we'll be discussing second order systems. Now what are second order systems? Now second order systems are those systems where the dynamic behavior of the process is represented by a second order differential equation, which is represented as a2 d square y by dt square plus a1 dy by dt plus a naught y equal to b times xt. So any system whose dynamics is represented by the second order is your second order system. Now in this, if we divide the entire equation by a naught, so what do we have? We have a2 by a naught d square y by dt plus a1 by a naught dy by dt plus y equal to b by a naught times xt. Clear? Now this term is tau square, this term is 2 zeta tau, and this term is kp. Now tau, zeta and kp, these are the important parameters of second order system, where tau is known as your natural period of oscillation, zeta is known as damping coefficient, and kp is known as your second order gain. I again repeat, tau is your natural period of oscillation, zeta is known as damping coefficient or damping factor, and kp is your gain. So that means my second order system is now somewhat tau square dy by dt square plus 2 zeta tau dy by dt plus y equal to kp times xt. Now if you take the Laplace of this equation, so we have ys upon xs, which is something like tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. It comes out to be this thing. Clear? So you see, in the denominator part of the transfer function we are having a term s square. So s square represents your second order system. If you see in the first order system, the transfer function was ys upon xs equal to kp upon tau s plus 1. So s was 1, so it was first order. Over here s is s squared, a quadratic equation appearing in the denominator, so it's the second order. So if we have now in the higher orders, if we have s3, s4, so that becomes they are either third order systems or fourth order systems. Clear? Moving further, now in which processes basically the second order system occurs? They are categorized into three categories. First is your multi-capacity processes, because these are the certain physical situations where second order system occurs. So one of them is your multi-capacity, second is your inherent systems, and third is any process with controller. Clear? Now let's first discuss what are these different types of systems. Now if you see multi-capacity, now in the previous lecture we have studied liquid level tanks, interacting and non-interacting. Now if you see the transfer function of both those interacting and non-interacting, in the denominator part we have a term tau square s square plus the other terms plus 1. Now if you see over here, it's s square, so that means all those capacity systems, for any interacting or non-interacting systems, they are by default your second order systems only, because if you're multiplying two first order systems, obviously they're going to end up your second order systems. Then comes inherent system. Now what are inherent systems? Inherent systems are those systems where their behavior is by default or by defectively they have the second order system. Like for example, in the chemical industry we normally deal with the motion of the fluid. Now if you apply the balance on the system, now the balance on the system where there is a motion of the fluid is encountered by It's encountered by the inertial forces. Now what are inertial forces? Inertial forces is nothing but mass into acceleration. Now what is acceleration? Acceleration is dv by dt. And what is velocity? Mass into d square y by dt square. That is the displacement. Now over here in that balance equation we have appearance of d square y by dt square. So this by default makes those systems your second order system. So any process where there is a motion of the fluid occurring, they by default they are your second order systems. Then comes the third case, where is the process with the controller. Now process with the controller, if you remember the control systems, we have a controller over here and we have a process, and then this was your measuring element and it goes back over here. Now any process, if it is associated with the controller, obviously the dynamic nature of this process, it changes, it gets affected by the presence of this controller. So hence such systems, they by default appears to be second order or higher order systems. Clear? So now for process with controllers, we're going to discuss more about controllers in the coming lectures. Over here we're going to discuss about some inherent systems where their by default nature is of second order. The first example which we're going to discuss is your U-tube manometer. Now U-tube manometer, suppose we have a U-tube manometer. Now U-tube manometer, we all know, is used to measure the pressure difference at two different points. Now initially, suppose if the fluid is at rest, if the pressure is same at both the points, then the liquid inside the fluid will be at the same level in the U-tube. Now if we apply the force at one of the limbs, that is, we apply the pressure over here, now P1 appears to be greater than P2. So what will happen? Obviously the liquid in this limb will move down by a height V, and obviously the liquid over here, this liquid will move down, and in the other limb the liquid will move up via height, let's say y. So total change in the height will be 2 times y, and from there we can calculate the pressure drop. Now let's study the dynamic behavior of this system. Now for this, let's apply first of all the force balance. Let's apply the force balance on the system. So force balance on the system is equal to the inertial forces. Now what will be the force balance on the system? Force balance on the system will be force due to your applied pressure second will be your force due to friction, or you can say frictional force. Third, force due to the head of the, that is due to the difference, is equal to the inertial forces, and inertial forces will be m d square y by dt square. Clear? Now let's apply the force balance. Now because of the pressure difference, so we can say the force will be delta P into A, where delta P is nothing but P1 minus P2. Clear? Force due to friction we'll see later on, we'll find it out later on. Now force due to head will be, let's say, rho into A times 2y into G divided by GC, and over here let me again divide by GC, and what on the other side it is m by gc d square by dt, where m can also be written as volumetric flow rate. Clear? AL is the volumetric flow rate, A is the cross sectional area, L is the length of this thing, and into density will give me the mass by gc, that is d square y by dt square. Now force, frictional force. Let's talk about frictional force. Now frictional force is nothing but delta P into pi r square by gc. Clear? According to Hagen-Poiseuille's equation, what is volumetric flow rate? That is pi r4 delta P upon 8 mu L. And what is again volumetric flow rate? It is A dH by dt. Let me write it on the next page. So that is A dH by dt is equal to Q, which is pi r4 delta P upon 8 mu L. So if you divide by r square, so we're gonna have pi r square into delta P upon 8 mu L. And what will be pi r square delta P from this? It will be 8 mu L into A divided by r square into dH by dt. So we have the value of pi r square into delta P, that is the frictional force over here. So we substitute delta P pi r square over here, so we'll have frictional force. So your frictional force comes out to be eight mu L area by r square into gc into dH by dt. Now we're going to substitute this value of frictional force over here in this equation, that means over here. So our equation comes out to be, let me write it over here again, our equation, it will be delta P into area minus 8 mu L A by r square gc into dH by dt. dH, okay, over here what I'm using is y, sorry, we are using y, so let me write it over here y. Let me correct it again, this is not dH, this is dy, so my mistake. So it's, make a correction, this is dy, so it is dy, because we're gonna using the same nomenclature, so let it be y, so it is dy. Clear? The next term was your, because of the head, so rho A into 2y g by gc, and on the other side it was rho A L by gc into d square y by dt square. Clear? Now you see second order system, and because of this pressure difference this thing happened. Now let's divide this entire equation by 2 rho A g by gc. Entire this divide this entire equation by 2 rho A g by gc. So what do we have? So upon dividing, we'll be left with gc by 2 rho g into delta P minus 4 mu L by rho gc r square into dy by dt minus y equal to L by 2g by d square y by dt square. Clear? Now upon rearranging, what we have is L upon 2g d square y by dt square plus 4 mu L upon rho g r square dy by dt plus y equal to g by 2 rho g by delta P. Now what is this? this is your tau square, this term is your 2 zeta tau, and this is Kp. So it comes out to be your second order. So upon taking the Laplace, so we have Ys upon delta Ps, which is Kp over tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1, where tau square is L upon 2 and 2 zeta tau is 4 mu L upon rho g r square, and Kp is Gc upon 2 rho g. Clear? So you can see your YouTube manometer behaves like a second order system. Now we have another example of inherent system, which are basically your pneumatic valves. Now what are pneumatic valves? Pneumatic valves are used to control the flow rate. They're basically used to implement the decision taken by the controller. Now if you see over here, there is a diaphragm on which the pressure is applied. Now as the pressure is applied, the stem goes down and the spring contracts, and as the stem goes down, the plug obstructs the flow. So the position of the stem determines the size of the opening of the flow and consequently the size of the volumetric flow rate. Now upon this, if you apply the balance, there are certain forces which are being acting on the system. Now these forces are P into A, that is pressure forces, K into X is because of the spring, and C dx is because of the frictional forces. So if we balance these forces with the motion of the fluid, so it is this thing, that is pressure forces, your spring force and your frictional force, balance this the amount of flow rate. So it again comes out to be in the term of tau square dx square dt square in the second order system. So pneumatic valves, YouTube manometers, all these measuring elements or the final controlling elements, they are basically by default your second order systems. Moving further, now we know that second order systems have a transfer function represented as Ys upon Xs as 1 upon tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. Clear? Now for a given step input, now suppose if the input or the forcing function is, let's say, a unit step function, so what will be Xs? Xs will be 1 by s. So Ys comes out to be 1 upon s into tau square s square plus 2 zeta tau s plus 1. Clear? Or this second order system, this can also be represented as s square plus 2 zeta by tau plus s over 1 by tau square. So whose roots can be calculated as s1 and s2, which will be nothing but minus zeta plus minus zeta square minus 1 upon tau. Clear? So that means depending upon the value of zeta, we can have either the roots as we can categorize the roots either in the form of a complex, real unequal, or real equal. So that means depending upon the roots of this second order system, the nature of the response of Yt depends. So that means the response depends upon the roots of this second order system. So that means if zeta decides the nature of the roots and the nature of roots decides the nature of the response. Clear? Now if zeta is equal to 1, so the roots are basically, both the roots are minus zeta by tau, so both the roots are equal. So the nature of roots are basically real and equal. So if the nature of the roots are real and equal, that means the nature of the response is your critically damped and it's non-oscillatory in nature. Non-oscillatory in nature. I'll explain what is critically damped and non-oscillatory, but for the timing remember that if the zeta is 1, the roots are real and equal, so the nature of response is critically damped and oscillatory. Second, if zeta is less than 1, so the nature of, if zeta is less than 1, that means it makes the roots complex, so the nature of the roots are complex, and obviously if the roots are complex, the nature of the response is underdamped and oscillatory. Third, if the zeta is greater than 1, so obviously if the zeta is greater than 1, we'll have two different roots and both will be real. So the nature of the roots are real and unequal, and the nature of the response is overdamped and non-oscillatory. Overdamped and non-oscillatory. Now we'll see what do you mean by oscillatory and non-oscillatory. Now suppose over here what we've done is we have given an input of unit step input to the system. So depending upon the roots, the nature will be different. Let's see. Now suppose if zeta is 1, that means if zeta is 1, that means both S1 and S2 will come out to be minus 1 by tau. So hence my ys will come out to be 1 by tau square over S times S plus 1 by tau square. That means over here, that means this thing will come, if zeta is 1, so it simply becomes tau square S square plus 2 tau S plus 1. So it's nothing but the quadratic in terms of tau S plus 1. So if you take the Laplace inverse of this, so the Laplace inverse of this will come out to be yt, which will be, you can take the partial fractions, a by s plus b over s plus 1 by tau plus c over s plus 1 by tau square. Put the values, find the values of a, b, c, put it in this expression, take the Laplace inverse, so you have your yt. Now yt over here comes out to be 1 minus 1 plus t by tau e minus t by tau. So remember this nature of response. Now this is for the case where zeta is 1. Now I'll explain this nature. This behavior is basically your critically damped and non-oscillatory. I'll explain later on once we're going to plot this thing. Now second is, if zeta is greater than 1, if zeta is greater than 1, then the roots were real and unequal. Then the roots were real and unequal. For that, in that case, the roots will become minus zeta plus minus zeta square minus 1 over tau. Clear? So your ys will be 1 by tau square over s into s minus s1 and s minus s2. You know, put the values of s minus 1, s minus s1 and s minus s2 over here. Take the partial fraction. I'm directly writing the response. So the response comes out to be, after taking the Laplace inverse, so the response comes out to be 1 minus e minus zeta t by tau into cos hyperbolic zeta square minus 1 t by tau plus zeta upon zeta square minus 1 sin hyperbolic zeta square minus 1 into t by tau. So this is the response of your system where zeta is greater than 1, that is root is real and unequal. Now again, this behavior is somewhat your overdamped. and non-oscillatory. Then again I'll explain this thing later on once we're gonna plot this thing. Now let's find out first the third part, that is zeta less than 1. Third case is zeta less than 1. For zeta less than 1, the roots are complex. For the third case, zeta less than 1, the roots are complex. Now over there we can you can directly remember the response, because you don't need to solve it for every time. You just remember the response. For second order, if zeta is less than 1, for unit step, your response is basically somewhat this thing, 1 upon 1 minus zeta square, it's e minus zeta t by tau into sine under root of 1 minus zeta square t by tau plus tan inverse 1 minus zeta square upon zeta. It's this thing. Now important part over here, for second order system, if you give a step input, depending upon the roots, if the root is less equal to 1, you will have this response. If the root is greater, if the zeta is greater than 1, you will have this response. If zeta is less than 1, you will have this response. Now either every single time you can derive them, or you can simply remember them. So there is no hard and fast, you just need to cram these responses for equal to 1, greater than 1 and less than 1. Now let's plot the response, time and response. Now in this case, if you we know all these values of tau, zeta, we'll have a simple expression of yt in terms of t. For different values of t, if you're gonna plot, so we'll have this nature. For let's say zeta equal to 0.6, if you change zeta, this is for zeta, let's say 0.2. Clear? So this nature is called basically your underdamped and oscillatory, because until zeta is less than 1, the system will behave like this. The system will have oscillations and it's underdamped in nature. For zeta equal to 1, it's represented by this thing, green one, that is zeta equal to 1. So it's critically damped and non-oscillatory. Critically damped means, now if you slightly decrease the value of zeta from 1 to 0.9, it will start oscillating. That's why the name comes critically, on the verge, critically damped. For zeta greater than 1, the nature of response is somewhat this. This is, let's say, zeta equal to 2, zeta equal to 5. The system becomes more and more sluggish in nature. It tends to deviate from its steady state value. Clear? So you can clearly see the variation of zeta from greater than 1 to zeta equal to 1 to zeta less than 1. Clear? So normally all chemical processes in physical situation, they all are second order system, and they all behave, their all response are basically your underdamped system. So in our case, underdamped plays a very important role. So we need to remember the step response of this thing. So you need to remember this expression for underdamped as well as for the critically damped. You don't need to cram this because it's very difficult. We never use this overdamped system anywhere. So yes, critically can come somewhere, but underdamped is very important. Clear? So in the next lecture we're gonna take another case where we're gonna give an input of impulse input, and we're gonna try to understand the different parameters for underdamped system, because underdamped is very important, because in underdamped you see we have oscillations, whereas in the critically damped we do not have oscillation, and the overdamped we do not have oscillation. So oscillations are very important, which need to be reduced, and they can be reduced with the help of your controllers, because more system oscillate, it tends to deviate from its steady state, the system becomes unstable, and in order to stable the system we need to put up the controller. So controller duty is to minimize the dampness, minimize the oscillations, and normally all the systems which are second order, they behave and underdamped, subject to condition if their damping factor is less than 1. Clear? Now in this lecture, if you have any difficulty, you are most welcome to contact me at any time. My email ID is there at the first slide. Thank you.